Not too bad.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Judge. How you doing?
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Sure. My name is Taylor Burns. I'm a special agent with the FBI here in Savannah, Georgia.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from South Carolina originally.
And can you tell us a little bit about your education before joining the FBI?
Sure. Prior to joining the FBI, I obtained a bachelor's degree at the University of South Carolina in information technology.
And when did you graduate from South Carolina?
I believe it was December of 2013.
Did you go right into the FBI?
I did not. While in school and then for a few years out of school, I worked in the athletic department doing computer work for the department for about 2 years prior to joining the FBI.
And can you briefly describe the process for you of joining the FBI and becoming a special agent?
Yeah, absolutely. I applied to the posting on the FBI website. And then got a call back at some point a few months after to do the first phase of testing for the FBI. Once I completed the first phase, I then was asked to do the second phase of testing, as well as a fit test, an interview, a polygraph, a background check, and then once I got through all of that, I did 6 months of training at Quantico, which was primarily law enforcement training, legal training, tactical training, defensive tactics, really the skills I would need to do the job as an FBI agent. And then once I was in Quantico, I then was assigned to the Atlanta office.
Okay. Did you ever work in Atlanta itself?
I did. So I worked in Atlanta from 2016 until 2022.
And then what happened in 2022?
In 2022, I transferred from the Atlanta office down here to the Savannah office.
Is that a transfer that you asked for or wanted, or just something they told you you were going to do?
No, that was a transfer that I wanted just to get closer back to home.
Okay. Now, does the FBI have authority to get involved in the investigation of reported kidnappings or child abductions?
Yes, we do.
And under that authority, did the Savannah FBI office become involved in the disappearance of Quentin Simon?
Yes, we did.
Now, I'd like to draw your attention to the morning of October, well, maybe it wasn't the morning for you, but October 5, 2022, okay?
Okay.
Did you become involved as early as October 5, 2022?
I did.
Tell us where you were and what you were doing when you first became involved in this case.
Sure. On the morning of October 5th of 2022, I was in the office working, as usual. Sometime mid-morning, one of our other agents, Brad Snyder, who I believe you'll hear from at some point, walked over to my desk and said that there was a missing child out of Chatham County. He didn't really have a lot of information at that point, and our assistance wasn't needed at that point. Later, about noon, I believe, maybe a little bit later, I got a call from Brad again and said that he was going to the Chatham County Police Department Annex to assist and asked that I join him over there.
And did you do that?
I did.
Did you go with anyone else?
So myself and Brad were over there, and then another agent, Savannah Solomon, met us over there as well.
What was going on when you got there?
When I got there, a few of the residents from 535 Buckhalter were at the annex, and they were planning to do interviews at that annex.
This term annex you used, is that synonymous with Chatham County Police Headquarters?
Yes.
Okay. These three residents, were they the defendant, Leilani Simon, her brother, Paul Simon, and Daniel Yunkin?
Yes, they were.
Did you get paired up with a Chatham County detective to interview one of these people?
Yes, I did.
Who were you paired up with?
Detective Sean Wilkins.
And who all did you interview? did the two of you interview?
So myself and Wilkins interviewed Paul Simon.
Where did this interview take place?
It was in one of the conference rooms at Chatham County PD headquarters.
And what was the general nature of the questioning with Paul? What were y'all looking to get out of him?
We were looking for just information about his whereabouts during the time or around the time that of Quentin's disappearance, as well as the kind of the day prior, the day of, and just trying to figure out where he was, what he was doing, and those sorts of things.
About how long did this interview last?
It
roughly?
was about 30 minutes or so.
Did he answer all the questions that you asked of him?
Yes, he did.
Were there any questions that he refused to answer or anything like that?
No, there weren't.
What can you tell us about his demeanor, body language, and just general affect during your interview with him?
Paul was very calm, relaxed. He seemed very honest. He was honestly kind of goofy in the interview. There were times where we were laughing, but overall, that was kind of his affect.
Is that just kind of the way Paul is?
It seems so, yes.
Were there any areas of questioning that caused any of that to change or make him nervous or anything like that?
No.
At some point in the interview, was he asked for consent to go through his cell phone?
He was asked for the passcode to his cell phone, and he provided the passcode.
And was that the only one of these three individuals that you were personally involved in interviewing that day?
In interviewing, yes.
Okay. At any point that day, did you yourself go to 535 Buckhalter Road and visit the residence?
Yes, I did.
At what point in the day was that?
So following the interview of Paul, I don't know exact time, but eventually myself and Savannah Solomon went over to the residence at 535 Buckhalter.
Is it fair to say that the bulk of your involvement in this case was analyzing some of the electronic digital evidence?
Yes, I was involved with the cell phones, and just trying to figure out what was going on with those devices at the time.
Now, were you aware on October 5th that all three of these people's cell phones had been extracted via Cellbrite by Sergeant Coleman?
Yes, I was.
And were you aware that later, a couple days later on October 7th, Deshaun Williams of the Savannah Police Department conducted a gray key extraction on the defendant's cell phone?
Yes, I was aware of that.
And were all of those cell phone extractions provided to you?
Yes, they were.
And did you look at them and go through them and do some work with them?
Yes, I did.
One of the things I'd like to ask you about is GPS mapping.
Sure.
Okay? Just generally, like a very simple level, what is GPS mapping?
It's just a mapping of points by satellites to identify, a location. For a cell phone, for instance, the location of a cell phone.
Using GPS data, were you involved in determining where the phones of some of these people were on the night of October 4th and the morning of October 5th, and whether those phones made any significant movements during that time frame?
Yes, I was.
Whose phones specifically were you able to do this for?
I was involved in looking for that information from Paul Simon's phone, Daniel Youngkin's phone, as well as the defendant, Leilani Simon.
Were you able to do some GPS mapping pertaining to the location and movements of Daniel Youngkin's phone?
Yes, I was.
And what data allowed you to tell where his phone was on the night of October 4th and morning of October 5th, and whether it made any significant movements during that time frame? What's the type of data that you were looking at as it pertains to Danny?
For Danny's phone, it was Life 360 GPS data.
All right. And how did that data get to you?
It was obtained via a search warrant to Life 360 by the Chatham County Police Department and then shared with me.
What form does that data come in? What are you actually looking at when you look at records produced by Life 360 or data produced by Life 360?
The records I obtained were spreadsheets that contained latitude, longitude, and then like accuracy measurements. So that's what I received.
And what did you do with the Life 360 data pertaining to Daniel Youngkin's phone?
So I used the tool. It's available to law enforcement to map out those GPS coordinates that were in the Life 360 data on a map so that I could see where exactly those points were on the map.
Okay. Now, for the defendant's phone, did you also have Life 360 data that you were able to do the same thing with?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any additional sources of location data beyond the data produced by Life 360 for the defendant's phone?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what that was?
Yes, so on the defendant's gray key extraction, I obtained GPS data direct from the device itself, which contained location information.
What is the difference between that, that GPS data directly from the device itself and the data that you got from Life 360?
So the data from Life 360 was information obtained from the application on the cell phone, whereas the data from the phone was direct from the device.
Okay. Now, what did you do with the defendant's Life 360 location data and what I'll call the device GPS data that allowed you to tell where her phone was and whether it had made any movements during the time frame we're talking about?
I utilized the same law enforcement tool to map out both the Life 360 data as well as the device GPS data on a map so that I could see where exactly it was.
Now, as for Paul's phone, did Paul have Life 360?
He did not.
Okay, so is it accurate then to say that no Life 360 data was obtained as it relates to Paul?
That's correct.
Did he have handset, like device GPS, like you talked about for the defendant's phone?
No relevant GPS data from his device was located.
Okay, so did you do any GPS mapping for Paul's phone though?
I did not.
Okay, and that's just because?
I didn't have it.
Okay. Let me ask you just a couple of overview questions, looking for kind of a crisp summary
Okay.
before we get into the details of what the results of this were. Okay. For Daniel Youngkin's phone, during the period of, say, 10 p.m. on October 4th and 10 a.m. on October 5th, what did you determine about where his phone was and whether it made any significant movements?
Sure. So for Danny's phone, on the night of October 4th, from about 10 p.m. until about 5:45 a.m. on October 5th, according to the Life 360 GPS data that we received or we obtained, his phone was at the 535 Buckhalter residence during that period of time. At about 5:45, the phone is then observed moving from the residence to Danny Youngkin's workplace, arriving at about 6:15 in the morning, I believe, and then it remained there until about 9:20 or 9:30 that morning, and then it was observed coming back to the residence. I don't remember arriving at exactly what time.
Okay. Is it fair to say, we're going to get into it in more details, is it fair to say that the times that you just gave are kind of approximate?
Yes, they are approximate.
Okay. For the defendant's phone during that same period, say 10 p.m. on October 4th and 10 a.m. on October 5th, what were you able to determine about where that phone was and whether it made any significant movements?
So for the defendant's phone, on the night of October 4th, at about 10:30, again, approximate, the phone leaves the residence, drives up to a Circle K gas station at the corner of Ogeechee Road and Chatham Parkway. It remains at the Circle K gas station for a few minutes. It is then observed driving down Highway 17 up to Highway 204 in the area near Arkwright Lane. The phone is there for approximately 10 minutes or so, and then the phone is then observed driving or coming back to the Buckhalter Road residence. I believe it got back about 11:30 or so.
Now, after that trip, did the phone make any other movements that night?
It did. So after the trip to Circle K and Arkwright Road and back home, the phone remained at the house until approximately 1:14 a.m. At approximately 1:14 a.m. on October 5th, the phone is observed driving down Buckhalter Road and then is observed in Azalea Mobile Home Park, and then is shown back at the house. And that trip was approximately 15-20 minutes or so, I believe.
Were you able to observe any period of time during that trip where the phone was more or less stationary at Azalea?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
According to the records, the phone appeared to be stationary for a few minutes at Azalea.
Now, why was it? We've talked about how a cell-brite extraction was done on each of the 3 phones, but we've heard testimony now that the gray key extraction was only done on one, the defendant's phone. First of all, did all 3 of these people have the same type of phone? They
did not.
Can you tell us what types of phones they had?
Sure. For the defendant, she had an iPhone, and then for Danny Simon and Paul Simon, they had 2 Android phones, different types of Android phones. I don't have the exact types.
Is there any particular reason that the gray key extraction was only done on the defendant's phone?
Gray key, primarily at the time, I believe was supported iPhones much more than Android, which is why I believe it went over there to get a more thorough extraction.
Does the iPhone tend to give you more data than some of these other phones?
A full file system extraction of an iPhone, so like what was obtained with Gray Key, did contain more data than the extractions by Celebrite on the Android phones.
Now, you mentioned that 10:30-ish trip that the defendant's phone made included a period in which the phone was had a Circle K. Stopped there for a few minutes?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you follow up on that?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Is the reason that you followed up on it because you had seen this GPS data showing the phone there?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me about the follow-up?
Yeah, so myself and a task force officer with the FBI visited the Circle K and spoke to a manager there in an attempt to obtain video footage, video surveillance of the location during the time frame that the GPS data was showing the phone there. And so we followed up and obtained that footage.
Can you describe the process of getting that footage?
Sure. So we met with the manager. She pulled up the footage for the time frame we asked on the monitors, and then we downloaded a copy of that footage to a flash drive, I believe, and transported it back to our office.
Did that system appear to be functioning properly as far as you could tell?
As far as I could tell, yes.
And what does it show in terms of, well, let me ask you this. Did you review that footage to see what you could see during the time period that the defendant's phone GPS was saying she was there?
Yes, I did.
And what did you see?
I observed the defendant driving a vehicle into the parking lot of the Circle K, getting out of her vehicle, walking into the Circle K, going to one of the coolers, obtaining, I believe it was 2 drinks from the cooler, going to the counter, and then departing the counter back to her vehicle, and then leaving the Circle K parking lot.
Do you see in front of you an exhibit marked as State's Exhibit 62?
62, yes.
Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Can you tell us what it is?
Yes, this is a flash drive that contains a copy of the video footage we obtained from the Circle K.
Your Honor, I would introduce State 62 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
You should hit it. Without objection.
All right, now you talked about getting these phone extractions and going through them yourself.
Yes, that's correct.
And before we get to the details of what else you might have gotten from the phone extractions other than the GPS data you've talked about, let me ask you this. As to the GPS plotting that you've described, were you able to produce anything that shows these movements that you're talking about in a visual form that people can look at?
Yes, I was.
All right, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so like I said, I utilized a law enforcement tool to basically import the GPS data from both Life 360 and the defendant's device into the tool, which then mapped out the points on a map, and then you can create essentially a time lapse showing over a time period where those GPS points are then plotted on the map.
Is it essentially a video showing dots moving on a map
That's correct.
in the manner that you've described?
That's correct.
Now, other than the GPS data, did you review these cell phone extractions for anything else?
Yes, I did.
What kind of data were you looking for the period of October 4th, October 5th?
We were looking for anything that could lead us to the possible whereabouts of Quentin, anything that would lead us to, a location where we could possibly find him. So, things like text messages, phone calls, those sorts of things around the time of his disappearance.
Did you pull all of the text messages between the defendant and Daniel Youngkin during the relevant time frame?
Yes, I did.
Did you pull all of the text messages between the defendant and Paul Simon during the relevant time frame?
Yes, I did.
Did you pull all of the text messages between Paul Simon and Daniel Youngkin during the relevant time frame?
Yes, I did.
And did you pull all the text messages between Daniel Youngkin and Michelle McCarta during the relevant time frame?
Yes, I did.
Were you also able to see, at least for the defendant's phone, device data such as when the phone was locked and unlocked, like on the lock screen, when the flashlight was turned on and off, when the camera was turned on and off, and things like that?
Yes, I was.
Do these items contain timestamps showing when the phone was being used to make calls, send and receive text messages, and so forth?
They did contain timestamps.
Now, we've talked about a number of different categories of things. Your GPS screen capture time-lapse videos, the Circle K video, and text messages and call logs and things like that you were able to find on the phones. Have you prepared a presentation that basically puts all that together in a chronological order?
Yes.
And this presentation is essentially the story of that night from the perspective of the phones.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you believe that this presentation will aid the jury in their understanding of your testimony?
Yes, I do.
Do you see in front of you a disc and a printout marked as State's Exhibits 63A and 63B?
Yes, I do.
Remind me, which one is A and which one is B?
63A is a disc that contains the digital copy of the presentation. And then 63B is a physical printed out copy.
Are these the this is the presentation that you've prepared?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State's Exhibits 63A and B.
Give me 1 second, Judge. Judge, no objection, except when it comes time later on, we will deal with the continuing witness issue again.
Fair enough. Okay. You may proceed.
All right. What is, perhaps it's obvious, but what is the first slide here?
Just the date, Tuesday, October 4th, 2022.
And that's where we're going to pick up.
That's correct.
On slide 2, what are we looking at here? And if you could first just kind of read from the top of the slide and then describe to us what we're seeing.
Sure. So the top of the slide reads 10:02 a.m. to 10:10 a.m. Daniel Youngkin phone text message exchange with the defendant.
Where it says Daniel Youngkin phone there, does that mean that that is the device that is the source of what we're seeing here on the slide?
That's correct.
Okay. And given that, now what is the content of the slide? What are we seeing here?
So the content of the slide is text messages exchange between the defendant, whose phone number is 912-547-5275, who has a contact name Lonnie Baby, to Daniel Youngkin's phone number 910-729-1458.
And what time was this message sent?
It was sent at October 4th, 2022 at 10:02:49 a.m. UTC -4, so Eastern time.
Okay, so UTC -4 is equivalent to Eastern Standard Time, at least at this time of year.
That's correct.
Okay. And what is she sending him there?
She sends what appears to be 2 selfies, pictures of herself. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Moving on to slide 3, what are these 2 images?
Those are the 2 images that she sent to Danny.
Slide 4, what are we seeing here?
Slide 4, it's still a continuation of the same text message exchange. There's a response from Danny. It reads, "Geez." And then a second response, "They done? Question. I'm in the bathroom."
Okay, so both of those are from Danny to the defendant.
That's correct.
All right. And slide 5.
Slide 5 is still part of the same text message exchange. Danny sends "your eyes," though, with some greater than symbols. And then there's a response from the defendant that reads, "Yes, I'm done."
And what time was that message at the bottom there sent?
Again, October 4th, 2022 at 10:03 a.m. Eastern time.
Now, this next slide, can you read to us the heading at the top?
Yes, it is 10:15 a.m. to 10:35 a.m. Paul Simon phone text message exchange with Daniel Youngkin.
On this slide here, given that this is from Paul Simon's phone, which one of these bubbles is going to be Paul?
The green bubble will be Paul.
And which one is going to be Danny?
The blue bubble will be Danny.
Can you read to us this exchange, noting the time that each of these messages were sent, who it's to and from and all that?
Sure. So Danny sends a text message to Paul that reads, "Yo, Dave wanted to know if you'd go in at 12. I'm at dentist with Leilani. She just got her tooth pulled." That message was sent at on October 4th, 2022 at 10:40 a.m. Eastern time. Paul then responds to Danny that reads, "Yeah, I'll be in." And that was at 10:51 a.m. Eastern time on the same day.
Moving on to slide 7, can you read the heading into the record here?
Yes, the heading on this slide reads 2:32 p.m. to 2:34 p.m. Daniel Youngkin phone text message exchange with Michelle McCarta.
And can you walk us through the contents in the same manner as you did with the last slide? This one's a little harder to make out
Yes.
for those of us looking at the screen.
So Danny from his phone sent a text message to Michelle McCarta that read, "Just got home. Leilani just got her top left wisdom tooth removed. I'm going to try to clean for a few while she naps. She's still loopy from mess. Is 4:30 still okay? Danny then follows up with a message that reads meds ***, and then Michelle responds to Danny saying okay 4:30.
Do you have some experience going through cell phone extractions and kind of deciphering what messages seem to mean?
I do.
What does that meds message appear to you to be?
It appears to be a correction for a misspelling on the first message.
Moving on to slide 8, what's the heading on this slide?
The heading reads 9:46 p.m. to 10:03 p.m. Paul Simon phone, text message exchange with defendant.
And can you walk us through the contents of this slide?
Sure. So there's on the left side, there's a text message from the defendant that reads, "Can you grab a GAR on your way home, please?" And then a second message that has a question mark. Those messages were about 5 minutes apart. And then there's a response from Paul that reads, "I got some mini," at 9:59:49 p.m. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to move on to slide 9 now.
Okay.
What's slide 9?
This is additional text messages from the same group of messages or text exchange. The message reads from from the defendant to Paul, "Okay, you on the way." Paul then responds, "In a minute," and then the defendant responds, "Okay."
Now, based on the contents of these messages, does it appear to you that the defendant is home at this time at least?
At this time, yes.
Okay. And that Paul is not?
Based on the text messages, Paul appears to be elsewhere, and she's asking if he's on the way home.
Okay.
So I don't know from the text directly exactly, there's no location indication for the defendant.
Okay. Moving on to slide 10. What is slide 10?
Slide 10 is a screenshot. Here, I'll read the heading, sorry. 10:24 p.m. to 11:10 p.m., the defendant's phone, trip to Circle K in Arkwright Lane. What this is a screenshot from the law enforcement program that I previously discussed, that I used to map the GPS coordinates from the defendant's phone and her Life 360 data. And
Yeah,
this is actually a video.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask
Yep.
you, because I perceive screenshot as like a still frame, but this is a video.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we press play on this, can you step down and kind of walk the jury through what they're going to see when we play this?
Sure. So on the screen here, you see red dots. It's kind of blown or kind of zoomed out, but this is in the area of 535 Buckhalter from the residence. Once we play the video, you'll see these dots start to move, and you'll notice that the dots will move up this way, down. This is Chatham Parkway. Stop here for a moment. This is the corner of Chatham Parkway and Ageechee Road. This is where the Circle K that I've previously discussed. Then you'll see the dots move down Highway 17, all the way down to 204, go across I-95, and end up about right in here, which is where Arkwright Lane is, as I previously discussed. And then you'll see the dots come back down 204, back down Highway 17, onto Buckhalter Road, and then end up exactly back at where the area of the residence is.
Okay. So this trip is about how long total then?
About 30 minutes.
Okay. And this is all going to be compressed into a video that's how long? Like a minute or two?
It's a very short video. I would say a minute or two
Okay.
at most.
Can you, when I play this thing, can you stand up and sort of indicate like when the dots start moving, just to kind of orient people? I'm not asking you to stand in front of the thing and walk them across the whole whole time.
Sure.
But just with your hand, can you, when they kick off and move down, would it be Garrard?
I believe that was Garrard over to Chatham Parkway.
Can you just sort of let us know when that begins?
Sure. Can you pause it for a second? Sorry.
Sure.
One thing I just wanted to point out, in the video, you may see purple dots. When I imported this information, these coordinates into the tool, I color coordinated the device GPS coordinates as red dots and the Life 360 data as purple dots. So that's why there's two different colored dots on the screen.
Are there going to be more red or more purple?
More red.
And why is that?
There was more GPS points on the device than in the Life 360 data.
Is it fair to say that the device GPS is like more fine grained than the Life 360 GPS, or it hits more frequently or something like that?
There were definitely a lot more records. I can say that for the device.
All right, so I'm going to thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to hit play again.
And as you can see, the dots move. They're here at the corner of Ogeechee and Chatham Parkway. They make their way down Ogeechee, and then you'll see them pop up over across 95. They're there for a minute, and then you'll see them kind of coming back down Ogeechee onto Buckhalter, and then back here.
All right, then that entire trip extended from about 10:24 p.m. to 11:10 p.m.
That's correct.
All right. Moving on to slide 11. This actually is a screenshot, right? The still frame.
It is a still frame, yes.
And what does it show?
It shows the time frame that the defendant's phone GPS is at the Circle K.
And roughly what was that time frame?
10:28 p.m. to 10:32 p.m.
Okay, so like the early stages of that trip.
That's correct.
Slide 12. What is this?
So the slide reads 10:31 p.m. defendant's phone cash app payment. What is shown here is information from the device showing cash app payment, and the description is Circle K number 01412 for $7.04 from the device on October 4th, 2022 at 10:31:18 Eastern Time.
All right, so that payment, does that correlate with the time period that the GPS is showing her at that establishment?
It does.
Now, the next slide, slide 13, what is this?
So again, this is another video. Actually, it's multiple videos in one video that have been stitched together. But this is the surveillance footage from the Circle K gas station.
Okay, and it's been stitched together to show what?
Just the movement, because there were different cameras at the Circle K gas station. So there were interior cameras, exterior cameras, and so there are, videos from the exterior that then go into the interior and then back to the exterior, just to show movement through the Circle K.
Now, unless I had binoculars, I would not be able to see the timestamp on that video from here. Can you tell us what the timestamp says at the bottom there?
Yes, it says October 4th, 2022, 10:27:43 p.m.
Okay. Does that line up with the GPS and the cash app?
That it does.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and play this video now.
Okay.
And actually, before I do that, I guess you've already sort of previewed it, right? I asked you more or less what we see at the Circle K.
Yes.
Let me ask you to do this. When I play this thing and and the defendant enters the frame, can you just sort of narrate to us where she's entering the frame so we know what to look for?
Sure.
Before you do that.
Yeah, sure.
Before you
No,
do
you're fine.
that, we've been going for a little while. Everybody just stand up for a second. Let's just mix it up a little bit. Look, everybody needs to stand up. Okay. Sometimes we need to work it out. I know I do. Okay. Okay. You haven't been here as long as we have.
I know.
All right, y'all sit down.
All right. Do you feel limbered and refreshed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit play on this slide 13. And again, I would ask you to just sort of, just talk us through what we're seeing.
Sure. So as you see, a vehicle is approaching and parking in the parking lot of the Circle K gas station.
Whose car is that?
The defendant. The video is still playing. There's just a pause. Sorry, not a pause on the video, but nothing is happening. You'll see here in a second the door will open and someone will get out of the vehicle. So the video is now showing the defendant getting out of her vehicle, closing the door. She walks out of frame of this camera, and then the additional camera angle from inside. She walks in the door, out of frame on that camera. There's an overview camera at the gas station that shows her going and walking over to the cooler doors. She opens the door. And then you'll see she walks over to the counter. You'll see a employee walk up here in a second. She's purchasing some items.
Can you tell what those items are?
So I can tell what appears to be potentially, but I can't say for certain. It looks to me like 2 natural light beers, but it's hard to see from here. All right. She then leaves out of the frame of that camera, shows the camera of the front door again. I don't know what that was, but she walks out and back to the vehicle. This is from the other exterior camera at a different angle. She then gets back in her vehicle. And then you'll see she backs out and then proceeds to depart.
And where is she headed at this point?
Up to Arkwright Lane.
Now, I'll ask just because we're all looking at it.
Sure.
Does this Savannah police officer here have anything to do with this case, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, he's probably just getting some coffee or snacks or something.
Maybe.
Or chat.
And as you'll see, the vehicle's now departing from the Circle K.
Moving on to slide 14, what are we looking at here?
Slide 14, the heading says 10:32 p.m. to 10:45 p.m. Defendant's phone text message exchange with Daniel Youngkin. This is still a continuation from the prior text message exchange. There's a text message from the defendant that reads, "Gonna run to 204, I guess, at 10:32 and 20 seconds on the night of October 4th. There's a response from Daniel Youngkin that reads, "Oh, okay."
So if that Circle K timestamp and GPS and all that shows her at the Circle K at like 10:28 to 10:32, would this 10:32 text message could have run to 204, I guess? Would that be something that she sent to Daniel Youngkin like right around the time she's leaving the Circle K?
That's correct.
And his response is, "Oh, okay."
That's correct.
All right, moving on to slide 15. Is this a continuation of that conversation?
It is.
What's his next message there?
So Daniel Youngkin's next message is, "Be safe, I guess, my queen." The defendant responds, "I will be, and I'll be quick, I promise." And then Daniel Youngkin responds, "I hope so."
Moving on to slide 16, is this a continuation of that same exchange?
It is.
And what does that first message there say?
So it's a message from Daniel Youngkin to the defendant. It says, "Paul showed up and is going to bed." The message was at 10:38 p.m. And then there's a response from the defendant that just reads, "Wow," at 10:40 p.m.
Slide 17.
Slide 17, it's still a continuation from the same text messages. There's a message from the defendant that reads, "Okay." Then there's a message from Danny that reads, "He said, son, about telling you he was on the way, then you leaving and him getting threatened to get ran over." There's a response from the defendant that reads, "I'm about to turn onto 204.
You'll be relieved to hear that I've already asked Paul, Danny himself to explain what that message meant, so I don't
Okay.
have to ask you to do that.
Thank you.
All right, so 10:41 p.m., I'm about to turn on to 204, and that's from the defendant to Danny Youngkin.
That's correct.
All right, moving on to slide 18, what does Danny say to that?
Danny responds, "Okay." And then the defendant responds, "No, he said in a little bit."
And does that message appear to be a reference to the thing about Paul?
I believe so, based on my reading of the text messages.
Slide 19.
Again, it's a continuation of the same text messages. There's a message from Danny to the defendant. "That's what I said, you said, he said." But he said something about, "No, it was I'm OTW or something." And then there's a follow-up message that reads, again from Danny to the defendant, "Thank you for the bit left, BBY. So sweet, no lie."
And when was that message sent?
10:44 p.m.
All right, so next slide. Slide 20.
Slide 20, still a continuation of the same set of text messages. There's a message from Danny to the defendant. "Just noticed Paul asked if soda was free to drink because of kids only on Hawaiian Punch." There's a response from the defendant that reads, "Yeah, just tell him not to be excessive with it."
And what time was that message sent? Yeah, just tell him not to be excessive with it.
10:45 p.m.
And next slide, slide 21.
Still a continuation of the same messages. It's a message from Danny to the defendant. It reads, "Gotcha," and then a follow-up message that reads, "I love you. PLZ, come back so we can crash together."
Now, what time did Danny send that last message? "I love you, please come back so we can crash together"?
10:45 and 50 seconds.
All right. Now, this next slide is what? Slide 22.
So this next slide is a still shot of the GPS mapping of the locations from the defendant's phone, showing the GPS locations at Arkwright Lane.
All right, and about what period of time does her GPS show that she was at Arkwright Lane?
About 10:45 p.m. to 10:55 p.m.
And how would that relate to the timing of that? I'm going to go back to the last slide. How would that time period relate to the timing of that message that Danny sent her? "I love you, please come back so we can crash together"?
It would be about the same time.
10:45 message, 10:45 to 10:55 at Arkwright Lane.
That's correct.
Moving on to slide 23, what is this?
This is another Cash App payment. The slide reads 10:49 p.m. defendant's phone Cash App payment. It shows that there was a Cash App payment from the defendant's phone at 10:49 p.m. on October 4th, 2022. The amount was $80. It was completed, and the source was Cash App.
Now, how far into her 10 minutes or so at Arkwright Lane would that Cash App have been sent?
About 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. And so does that mean then that her phone is at least still showing her there for another 5 or 6 minutes?
That's correct.
Moving on to slide 24, can you talk us through this slide and tell us how the timing of these messages relate to the time frame in which the defendant was at Arkwright Lane?
Sure. So the slide reads 10:51 to 11:10 p.m. defendant's phone text message exchange with Daniel Youngkin. This is still a continuation of the prior messages that we've seen. There's a message from Danny to the defendant that reads, "or not."
And about 5 minutes before that, he had texted her, "Please come home so we can crash together."
That's correct.
All right. And she did not reply to that message, did she?
No, she did not.
All right. So then he says, "or not."
Or not, correct. At 10:51 p.m., the defendant responds about the same time or soon thereafter, "I love you," at 10:51 p.m., and then responds again, "and I'm about to be walking to the car," again at 10:51 p.m.
Okay. And is it the case that her GPS shows her being there for at least a few more minutes after that message?
That's correct.
Slide 25.
Slide 25 reads 10:51 p.m. to 11:10 p.m. defendant's phone text message exchange with Daniel Youngkin. This is still the same text conversation. These are messages from Danny to the defendant. The first message reads "O" at 10:52 p.m. Second message reads "okay" again at 10:52 p.m. And then the third message, also at 10:52 p.m., reads, "I guess I'm gonna eat this food. Try amd. Stay up for a few."
Did he get responses to any of those?
He did not.
Slide 26.
Slide 26 is a continuation of the same messages. There's a message from Danny to the defendant at 10:56 p.m. that reads, "I know wanna be tired or you be tired, either bay."
And what time was that message sent?
10:56 p.m.
When was that sent in relation to the messages on the previous slide?
It's about 4 minutes after that.
All right. And how does the defendant respond to that?
The defendant responds, "I know, baby," at 10:56 p.m.
Slide 27.
Slide 27, again, a continuation of the same messages. Danny sends a message to the defendant that reads, "And I know you don't feel great. I don't know how you're still up, and I wanted to watch movie. Sad moment." He then responds again that was at 10:57 p.m.
Before you move on to the next
Yep.
one, this message at 10:57 where he says, "And I know you don't feel great. I don't know how you're still up, and I wanted to watch a movie, sad moment." Did he get a response to that?
He did not.
All right. And how long after that is his next message sent?
About 4 minutes.
And what does it say?
Moi.
And how long was it before the defendant responded to that?
It was about 9 minutes.
And what does she say?
She responds back, moi.
Now, slide 28 is a little busy
Sure.
for those of us looking at the screen. Can you tell us what this is and what it tells us?
Yes, so the heading reads 11:01 p.m. to 5:20 a.m. Daniel Youngkin phone, no activity. What this is a table showing timeline activity of Danny's phone. It shows the last two text messages, both the message that he sent to the defendant with moi, and then her response with moi to him, and then the next line is a message from Danny to Michelle McCarta that reads, "Hey, the kids are going to stay here with her today, Miss Michelle," and that was at 5:20 a.m. on October 5th.
Now, the timeline, is that, you mentioned this is from the timeline, I think?
Yes,
And is this something that you can view in the cell phone extraction, this timeline?
that's correct.
Does it include text messages sent and received?
It does.
Does it include phone calls made and received?
It
and
does.
Things like that?
Yes, it does.
What does this mean then about that 11:01 text he sent to the defendant?
About the 11:01 message, sorry, what was that?
Is this, can you tell whether he did anything else with his phone during this time period that registered on the timeline?
Based on the information on my review of his phone, following the 11:10 message that he received from the defendant until sending the message at 5:20 a.m. to the babysitter, there was no other activity that I observed for the phone.
And that 11:10 message he received from the defendant, that didn't require him to actually do anything, did it?
That's correct, no.
So in terms of what his timeline shows as to things that he himself was doing with his phone, is it fair to say that there's just like a total gap from 11:01 p.m. to 5:20 a.m.?
Yes.
Slide 29.
Slide 29 is a still shot, I guess, of the defendant's phone GPS location, utilizing the law enforcement tool, showing at 11:10 p.m. Between 11:10 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. The location of the phone, which is at the 535 Buckalter, or at or around the 530 Buckalter address.
All right, and this is included just to show that, like, roughly at this point, she's home by now.
That's correct.
Slide 30. What is this here?
Slide 30 reads 11:41 p.m. Paul Simon phone, last activity. It's from what I believe to be a co-worker of Paul, saying, "What time are you going in tomorrow?" I'm sorry, TMMW. And then him responding 12.
Slide 31.
Slide 31 is continuation of the same text message exchange with this individual. These messages are from this individual to Paul that read, "Let me know if you want my job, fam." And then the next message reads, "I'm about to quit this shit."
Did Paul respond to those messages?
He did not.
Slide 32.
Slide 32 reads 11:41 p.m. Paul Simon phone last activity. It's a table showing timeline activity for Paul's phone. It shows the text messages that I just described, and then following the last text message at 11:49 p.m., the next item in the timeline is a incoming call at 10:24 a.m. on October 5th, 2022, from Billy, mom, and then an outgoing call to Billy.
And those
At
calls
10:34.
would be like well into the police response to the residents?
That's correct.
Okay. Can we tell from this then when Paul's last activity on his phone was the night of October 4th?
So there appears to be no further activity after 11:49 p.m. on the night of October 4th from Paul's phone.
All right, and that's the time he got that last text message from the coworker that he didn't even respond to.
That's correct.
All right. His last activity that he would have done would have been at what time then?
According to this, 11:49 p.m.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about stuff that not text that he received and didn't respond.
Oh, sorry.
To, but text that he sent.
The last message that he sent would have been at 11:41 p.m.
Okay. Slide 33.
Slide 33 reads Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. So transitioning from October 4th, 2022 into October 5th, 2022.
Now, what is this slide here about? 34. What are we looking at here?
Slide 34. The heading reads 1:02 a.m. Defendant's phone camera turned on and off. So what this is information on the phone showing when the camera was turned on and off on the phone. The camera was turned on on October 5th, the morning of October 5th at 1:02 a.m. And then turned off a few seconds later, also at 1:02 a.m.
From your review of the phone, were any photographs taken during that time period?
Not that I observed.
Slide 35.
Slide 35, also very similar, reads 1:02 a.m. Defendant's phone flashlight turned on and off twice. So the first line of the table shows the flashlight turning on at 1:02 a.m. on October 5th, and then turning off a few seconds, or about 10 seconds later, also on October 5th at 1:02 a.m.
You can tell me to move on.
Okay, yeah, move up. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Next slide is a continuation of the last slide, and the flashlight turns back on again, and then back off.
And how long was it on for that time?
About 9 seconds.
All right, so 1:02 a.m., 2 sessions with the flashlight, I guess, one about 10 seconds and one about 9 seconds long.
Correct.
All right, that's right after the camera is briefly turned on for a second.
That's correct.
Okay. Both of those things are they both accessible from the lock screen of
Yes.
an iPhone?
Yes, they are.
So could that be consistent with someone kind of fumbling around with those two functions on the lock screen?
It could be, yes.
Slide 37, what is this?
Slide 37 reads 1:14 a.m. to 1:26 a.m. Leilani Simon phone trip to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza. This is a video of the GPS mapping of the defendant's phone from 1:14 a.m. to 1:26 a.m. on October 5th. When you play the video, it'll show the GPS points for the phone moving up Buckhalter Road, up to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza, and then back to the residence.
Just to orient us, maybe it's unnecessary, but just so we're clear, can you step down and just kind of trace for us the route that we're going to see?
Sure. So as you'll see down here, these are the dots for the GPS coordinates in the area near the residence. When we play the video, you'll see both red and purple dots because this does contain both the device location information and Life 360 information. You'll see them start going up Buckhalter Road until it gets to up here where the mobile home plaza is, and then coming back down back to the residence.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and play that slide. What's going on right here?
So right here in the video, I took the GPS coordinates. Do you mind if I kind of stand?
Sure, yeah.
If you want to pause it there, that's fine too.
Okay.
So you'll notice over here, I unchecked the GPS coordinates. These are the device GPS coordinates in order to show the Life 360 points because they were kind of hard to see in the video.
Okay.
And then I just clicked on a few to, give you the lat long, the date and time.
All right, I'm gonna hit play again. Let me
Sure.
know if you want to pause it at any other
Okay.
point.
And then if you pause it there, same thing. So I took off the Life 360 data and showed just the phone and device data during the time period, which is why you see all of these dots,
All the red ones.
all the red. Yeah. And then I clicked on.
All right, just let me ask you this: have you been out to Azalea yourself?
I have.
Right. When we first watched the beginning of the video, are you able to get any sense for what kind of route the phone appears to have taken through Azalea?
Yes, it's kind of hard to see because it's so kind of blown or zoomed out. But yeah, you can kind of see what route.
Does it look like it kind of made a loop that goes by the dumpsters?
Yes, it loops in and kind of goes back around and then out. And this is just me ending the recording.
Now, slide 38, what is this?
So slide 38 is just a little more zoomed in picture of the GPS coordinates for both the Life 360 and the device itself from 1:17:22 a.m. to 1:20 a.m. So just that very small time window.
Now, from your review of this and plotting of this GPS data, was there a period of time where the phone appeared to be stationary at Azalea?
There was, yes.
Is that more or less what we're looking at here?
Yes.
All right, what was that time period again?
It was a few minute time period. I don't have the exact, but this time period that I'm showing here is 1:17 to 1:20. So it was like a 2 to 3 minute period.
Would the stationary period have been inside that window, 1:17
Yes.
to 1:20?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe not stationary for that entire time, but the stationary period's in there.
Correct.
Okay. Slide 39, what is this?
Slide 39 reads 1:13 to 1:26 a.m. Defendant's phone plugged into charger. So this is information from the phone showing the device being plugged in and the timestamps. The table is kind of upside down. The second line shows that the device was plugged in on October 5th, 2022 at 1:13:26 a.m. And then it was unplugged on same time frame, but at 1:26 a.m. So it's plugged in at 1:13 and unplugged at 1:26.
How does that time frame in which the device was plugged into a charger line up with the time frame of the trip that you just talked about?
It lines up with the device moving from the Buckhalter Road address up to Azalea Mobile Home Park and then back to the residence.
What do you make of that then?
I mean, it appears the device was plugged in during that time.
Okay, to like a car charger or something like that?
I believe so, but again, I don't know.
Slide 40.
Slide 40 reads 1:47 a.m. to 2:01 a.m. Defendant's phone unlocked. Slide 40 shows a table showing when the device was unlocked at 1:47 a.m.
And does it show when the device locked again?
Yes. So the start time is 1:47 a.m. The end time is 2:01 a.m. So the phone was unlocked at 1:47. Oh, sorry, from the time period of 1:47 to 2:01.
So 14 minutes or so?
Yes.
What does it mean for an iPhone to be unlocked?
That just means either Face ID or PIN code is entered so that you're seeing the phone.
Okay, so it's like, looks like this and not like that.
Correct.
Okay. Were you able to look at data in the phone extraction, in either one of them, Cellbrite or Graykey, and tell anything about what the user of this phone appeared likely to be doing with the phone at this period of time, during this like 14, 15-minute period?
Yes, there was some activity. I can't 100% say it was attributed to a user or just the device itself doing things, because these phones are on all the time and doing things, both unlocked and locked. But there was Facebook activity during this time frame. I don't have a slide to show that.
Does it appear at least likely to you that the user of this phone during the period of time in which it is unlocked was scrolling Facebook?
There was a lot of Facebook activity, which, based on my experience would be indicative of that. But I can't say for certain.
Okay. Slide 41.
Slide 41 reads 2:01 to 9:13 a.m. Defendant's phone locked. Again, a table showing the lock status of the device. This was obtained in the extraction from the device. It shows the device being locked on October 5th, 2022 at 2:01 a.m. And then it was locked until 9:13 a.m. that morning.
Slide 42.
Slide 42 are text messages from Daniel Youngkin to Michelle McCarta. The text message reads, "Hey, the kids are going to stay here with her today, Miss Michelle." And then he gets a response from Michelle that reads, "Okay." And that was at 5:20 a.m. and the response was at 5:29 a.m.
Now, per your review of the Life 360 data for him, can you tell us where his phone was during this period of time?
Yeah, during this period of time, his phone was at the residence.
And again, had his phone moved from the residence at any point during the night?
Not during the night of the 4th to the 5th.
Slide 43.
Slide 43 is a video of GPS data, Life 360 GPS data for Daniel Youngkin. The slide reads 5:51 a.m. to 6:06 a.m. Daniel Youngkin, Life 360, travel to NFI warehouse. When you play the video, it'll show the Life 360 GPS points initially at the residence or at the area near the residence, and then you'll see him travel up to his workplace, and then during this time period up to his workplace.
Does the route that his phone took on this trip to work, does it go by Azalea Mobile Home Plaza?
It does not. So as you'll see, the dots are moving.
What are you doing here?
If you'll pause it here.
Is that good, or do you need me?
Yeah, no, that's good. So what this is when Life360, the data, when they send it back to you, it's basically got a start and end time. And so it shows you a window. And so what you'll see here is, this is the, sorry, can I stand up?
Sure, of course.
This is the end time of this. And you'll see in the video, I'm going to essentially expand this little time window all the way over here. And you'll see a second bullet that shows 141 session end, which basically means from this time period, so from 6:30 that morning until about 9:14, 17, the Life360 data shows the phone at the same location during that time period.
All right, I've hit play again, so let me know if you want to stop.
And I just highlighted that to show that that GPS point stays there during that time period.
All right. So this is just, this portion of this screen capture video is just to illustrate that the phone is stationary at work for like 3 hours.
Correct.
Do we need to watch the rest of this video?
You don't have to.
Okay. Slide 44.
Yes.
What is this here?
This is a Google Maps view of the routes from 535 Buckalter Road up to 101 Littlehurst Parkway, which is where Daniel Youngkin was working.
And what is the dark blue one there?
The dark blue on Google Maps is showing essentially the most expeditious route.
Does that appear to be the route that he took for that video?
Yes.
All right.
And by expeditious, I mean suggested route by Google Maps is what I should say.
I understand. The next slide, is this just sort of a zoom in on the very beginning portion of that route?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, the dark blue is the route that he appears to have taken for the GPS data, right?
That's correct.
Can you show us where Azalea Mobile Home Plaza is on here relative to the route that he took?
Yes. Do you want me to stand up?
Please.
Okay. So Azalea Mobile Home Plaza is up here, and the route is down over here.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what is the next slide here, slide 46?
This is again a prior slide that we've seen showing that the defendant's phone was locked from 2:01 a.m. on the 5th to 9:13 a.m. on the 5th.
And then what is slide 47?
Slide 47 is, I'll read it first. It's 9:14 a.m. defendant's phone call to Daniel Youngkin. It's a call log, export of a call log that shows an outgoing call from the defendant's phone to Daniel Youngkin at 9:14:29 a.m. And where it shows 21 minutes and 37 seconds, that was the duration of the call. It says it was answered and just has some other information in it.
And that call's at 9:14, lasted for 21 minutes. What is slide 48?
Slide 48 is a video, again, of Daniel Youngkin's Life360 GPS data that I mapped in the tool that I was using for the time period 9:22 to 9:34. In the video, you'll see the GPS points again up near his workplace, and then essentially travel the same route back down to the residence.
Let me know, I'm gonna play this now, let me know if you want me to pause it at any point, okay?
Okay.
Does he appear to have taken the same route home that he took to get to work?
Yes, he did. And if you'll pause it there.
Oh, sorry. Is that good, or you want me to advance a little bit?
Well, at the end of the video, I essentially expand that entire timeline to show all of the points, so it kind of shows you the route.
All right, I have just started again from the beginning.
Okay.
Not intentionally, really, it's just what
Sure.
happened. Tell me if you want me to pause it at any point, okay?
Okay. Yeah, so if you'll pause it there. As you can see, it shows, according to the Life 360 data, the GPS locations traveling back down.
Okay. What are you doing here in the video?
I was just trying to orient on the location of where the first point's showing.
Okay.
And then I kind of just followed the route down, clicking on the different points to get a time frame of reference where it shows what time those points were.
All right, the first one was at 9:22, right? That's when this, as far as the GPS is concerned, this trip is showing.
Correct.
Did I see that right, that the first point appears to be like some distance from his work?
Yes.
Okay. So if he says that he got this call at 9:14 and left more or less immediately, would that be consistent with this first GPS point showing the movement hitting at 9:22, some distance away from his work down the road?
Yeah, it appears based on the Life 360 data at that point, he had already left his workplace.
All right, was it en route home?
Correct.
Okay. Slide 49.
Okay, slide 49, the heading reads 9:39 a.m., defendant's phone 911 call. Again, this is an export from the call log showing an outgoing call to 911 at 9:39 a.m. on October 5th. The duration is 4 minutes and 1 second, and it shows his answer.
And what is slide 50?
So slide 50, it reads unknown time, defendant's phone, unsent text message. So on the defendant's phone, we found an unsent text message. The text message read, getting some Orajel. However, we couldn't conclusively determine when that text message was drafted.
You can see unsent text messages in these phone extractions?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. And this one is from the defendant's phone to
To,
Annie,
yep,
not ever sent, but drafted.
that's correct.
And it says getting some orange.
That's correct.
Your Honor, unfortunately, there are a couple of other areas that I need to cover with this witness, but I wonder if anybody wants a break at this point. I mean, I'm happy to press forward, but I figured we just finished a long thing. It might be good to ask. Say again?
Oh, yeah.
It's only 4:05. I hope I'm not out yet. But
Do y'all need a short break? Okay, let's do that. Okay, Mr. Dean.
we have heard some testimony about a camera fastened to a mobile home in Azalea Mobile Home Plaza, like directly across from the dumpsters that was appear to be pointing right at them. And some testimony that the Chatham County Police Department at least was not able to pull any footage from the relevant time frame from that camera. Were you involved in any effort to see what you could pull, what if anything could be pulled from that camera?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so
What did you get? How did you get it?
so yeah, I received the camera from Chatham County after they were unable to recover anything during the relevant time period. I then created an image of that and provided a copy to some of our technical folks up at Quantico, and then later that camera and the SD card that was in the camera was then transported to Quantico in an attempt to obtain additional information that is relevant to the time period.
To any particular unit at Quantico?
Yes, but I don't recall what the unit name was.
Does DFAU sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
Do you know what that stands for?
I do not.
Okay. And what was the result of all those efforts?
There were videos recovered from the device. They were all reviewed. However, it was determined that those weren't videos that were relevant to the time period. They were actually earlier than the time period we were looking for.
Like how much earlier?
Months, I believe.
Okay. Did it appear to you from all this that camera just like wasn't operational anymore during the relevant time?
That's correct.
Okay. I'd like to ask you some questions about evidence transport and lab requests to the lab at Quantico, okay?
Sure.
We've heard some testimony from Special Agent Rajabi that she collected a DNA sample from Henry Bubba Moss Jr. and submitted it to the Savannah FBI office for safekeeping. Were you involved in asking for any lab testing pertaining to this swab from the people at Quantico?
Yes, I was. I submitted the lab request for DNA comparison of that DNA sample.
And what was the first lab request that involved that DNA sample?
I have a copy of the lab request that I would like to refer to if I could. Just
Yeah, do you need to refresh your memory?
Yes, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
So was there one in late October?
Yes, October 28th.
Can you tell us what that particular lab request was for at that time and what was sent up there at that time?
Yes, it was a request for DNA comparison for the DNA sample taken from Henry Bubba Moss Jr. To a bone that was collected in the landfill that at the time was believed to be human.
Okay. And we've heard testimony from the forensic anthropologist, Dr. Christensen, that when she looked at that first bone that was sent up towards the end of October, she determined that it was, in fact, not human.
That's correct.
Is that the bone that she's talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And is that what she told you at the time in reference to that bone?
Yes, it was.
And going forward from that, did you guys keep looking?
Yes, we did.
Okay. How did Henry Bubba Moss Jr.'s DNA sample go up to Quantico at that time?
So it was transported by one of our agents in our office, Special Agent Brian Giovannini. Originally, I was supposed to be the one to transport that. However, he was going up to Quantico for another matter, and it was transported by him instead.
How did he accomplish that?
So the item was collected from our evidence room, packaged in a box, and then transported physically by Special Agent Giovannini to the lab.
And was it taken along with the Henry Bubba Moss Jr.'s DNA sample?
Yes, the DNA sample was taken up there, as well as the bone that was determined not to be human.
Okay, so at that point, Henry Bubba Moss Jr.'s DNA sample is up there.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, later, did you guys find some actual human remains in the landfill?
We did.
All right. And what was the date of that?
November 18th, 2022.
Were you at the landfill search operation initially at the time that human remains first began to be discovered there?
At first, no, but as soon as we had heard that possible human remains were found, we went over to the landfill, so I went over there.
And did you get eyes on what had been found at that point?
Yes, I did.
And were you involved in any way in the packaging and transport of those
Yes, I was.
remains? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the bones were packaged in 4 separate paper bags and then transported by myself from the landfill to our office in Savannah. The bones were then later transported to Quantico to the lab. All 4 bags were placed in a box, and then that was transported up to Quantico.
Okay. At some point before sending them, we've heard Dr. Christensen talk about first getting some pictures and then shortly thereafter getting the actual remains themselves. Do you know what she's referring to?
Yes, so prior to us sending the remains up to the lab, we were asked to take photos and send those to the lab prior to the transport.
Is that pretty typical for them to ask for like a photographic preview?
Yes.
And is that something that had happened with that first bone in October that turned out not to be human?
Yes, it did.
Okay. The actual bone itself is preceded by photographs being
That's
made
correct.
available to. Okay. Who specifically was involved in the transport of the remains discovered on the 18th from the FBI office in Savannah to the Quantico lab, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, it was Special Agent Solomon, so Savannah Solomon, another special agent who was a pilot with us. His name is escaping me at this time.
That's fine. But just because your involvement was the transport from the landfill to the FBI office in Savannah prior to any of that
That's
further transport.
That's correct.
I'd like to, do you have on the witness stand in front of you what's been introduced into evidence as State's Exhibit 78?
I do.
Can you look through that?
Sure. Okay.
Now, this has been identified by Dr. Christensen as 4 separate images of the contents of the bags that she received in the box that was sent up from Savannah, Georgia, I mean, not Savannah.
Sure.
Sometime after the discovery of human remains on November 18th. Do you recognize what's depicted in these images?
I do.
Is that the contents of the 4 bags that you were involved in the initial transport and packaging of?
Yes.
One moment, please, Your Honor. During this investigation, were you in constant contact with Detective Lemons and the rest of the Chatham County Police Department side of the investigative team?
Yes, I was.
We've heard testimony from Detective Lemons and from Detective Cox that they obtained search warrant or phone records for a variety of phone numbers via search warrants, and at least in one case, in exigent circumstances, request to the carrier. Were all of those records made available to you?
Yes, they were.
And were they incorporated into your FBI case file?
Yes, they were.
And you've already testified, I think, about receiving the Life 360 records from Detective Cox.
Yes, that's correct.
For both the defendant's phone number and Daniel Youngkin's phone number.
That's correct.
Did you incorporate those records into your case file?
Yes, we did.
Now, did you forward the phone records that you had gotten, all of them, and the Life 360 records that you've talked about, to any other FBI personnel for analysis?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us who it was that you gave them to?
Yes. When we received them, I also gave them to Special Agent Rob Corley. He is one of our CAS folks, which stands for Cellular Analysis Survey Team, who deal with cell phone data.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
I think I can narrow it down to a couple of hundred questions, Judge. Mr. Is it Taylor Burns, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I don't want to.
No worries.
I don't want to get it inverted. So, Mr. Burns, with regard to Daniel Youngkin's phone extraction, you're not saying that everything you've included in your presentation was everything you extracted, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so there was, and I'm just going to specifically mention some things. I mean, State's Exhibit 87 has a number of text messages and stuff that both the defense and the state have already introduced, but you didn't reference them. But were they part of your extraction as well?
They were.
Okay, so that's my first question. My next question is, and I don't, to be quite frank with you, I did not understand the bouncing blue dot. So
Sure.
I'm going to ask you, I understood the 204 and I understood the Azalea part, but the one for Danny Youngkin's route to work and from work, I really didn't. So if you could just in regular old English tell
Sure.
me, what was the route he took from 535 Buckhalter to Port Wentworth in regular old plain English for me?
I don't know every road that he took without looking at a map.
That's fine. You have it in front of you.
yeah,
It's your
you mind?
presentation. Yeah, I have
Okay.
no problem.
Sure.
I'm just saying I don't understand.
No, you're fine. Give me 1 second, please. Okay.
So I assume it starts at 535 Buckhalter.
It does.
All right. So that
and-
goes down. What's the first road he goes down?
I believe it was Garrard Avenue. Obviously, I have a very zoomed out picture
That's fine.
of that.
That's fine.
So I think it was Garrard Avenue to Veterans, based on this, up. What's this? I think that's up 516 into 21, up 21 over to where the workplace is.
Okay. So just so I can get it straight in my head.
Sure.
Goes right down Garrard Avenue, over to Chatham Parkway, to Veterans Parkway, to 516, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes. Without seeing the dots themselves,
Well,
yes.
that's fine. And then to 21, and then up to, I guess, Port Wentworth. on
Correct.
21. And I assume it's the same or similar route back.
Similar route back, yes.
And that's the only questions I have for you.
Okay.
Thank you, okay?
Mr. Dean, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
And Special Agent, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
may step down.
Thank you.